Hello, I'm Sondria Williamson, a member of Bass Chapel Church here in Greensboro. I'm also serving as chair of the Western North Carolina Conference Commission on Archives and History. Book of Discipline allows for the designation of historic sites by the annual conference. While we have a number of churches and locations of historical significance here within our conference, only 3 have applied for and received this designation, and they did so a long time ago. This year, we have received a request for the Louisa Chapel United Methodist Church and the Shook Smathers House, both located in Clyde, to receive this designation. I want you to know that the designation of United Methodist Historic Site does not involve a financial commitment on the part of the conference, nor does it require that the property be owned by the United Methodist Church. It simply celebrates the fact that the site is important to us and to our history as United Methodists. The Commission has already endorsed this petition, and our conference archivist, Jim Pyatt, can explain how and why.
Hello, I'm Jim Pyatt, Western North Carolina Conference Archivist. I am near Lake Junaluska in the town of Clyde at the building for Louisa Chapel United Methodist Church, a congregation which was closed at annual conference a year ago. Petition 4 at this year's annual conference is to name this property and the property of the Shook Smathers House as a United Methodist Historic Site. Paragraph 1712, 1A of the 2016 Book of Discipline allows for the designation of historic sites by the annual conference, upon recommendation of the annual conference Commission on Archives and History. At the present time, we only have 3 sites designated as United Methodist Historic Sites within the bounds of the Western North Carolina Conference: Bennett College in Greensboro, the Lake Junaluska Assembly nearby, and Rehoboth United Methodist Church and Grassy Creek Campground in Terrell. It is the belief of the Commission on Archives and History that we have additional sites within our conference which are worthy of this designation. The designation as a United Methodist Historic Site does not include a financial commitment from the annual conference, nor does it require that the property be owned by the United Methodist Church. It simply celebrates the fact that this site is important to us and to our history as United Methodists. This year, the Haywood County Historical and Genealogical Society has requested historic site status for the former Louisa Chapel United Methodist Church and for the Shook Smathers House. While this building was constructed in 1960, the history of this congregation goes back much further, back to the end of the 18th century. The land on which I am standing, the land for this church, and an accompanying campground were donated by Jacob Shook in December of 1835 to the trustees for the use of the Methodist Episcopal Church. The campground became the location for the building for Louisa Chapel Methodist Episcopal Church. We will go now and see where Louisa Chapel met originally. Behind me here is the Shook Smathers House, a home originally constructed by Jacob Shook after he moved to what is now Haywood County in 1786. This house has been modernized and enlarged several times since its original construction. The Reverend Samuel Edney founded what would become Louisa Chapel Methodist Episcopal Church in 1798 while he was pastor of the Swannanoa Circuit, the first appointment west of the Blue Ridge in North Carolina. According to the late Reverend Bill Bumgarner, former Western North Carolina Conference historian, the Louisa Chapel congregation met here at the home of Jacob Shook, and then later at the campground, the property that we saw earlier, until after Jacob Shook's death in 1839. Now let's go inside the house and see the chapel where the congregation met, here at the home of Jacob Shook. We are now in the chapel, on the 3rd floor of the Shook Smathers House. It is here that the congregation that became known as Louisa Chapel met in its earliest days. We also know from Francis Asbury's journal that he stayed here at Father Shook's at least once. His journal entry for Friday, November 30th, 1810, states that he, along with Henry Bain, John McGee, and Bishop William McKendry, arrived at Father Shook's about 9 o'clock at night after riding by horseback from Cosby, Tennessee. We can only assume that Asbury and company conducted a worship service while they were here. Because of the significance of Louisa Chapel being the first Methodist congregation west of Asheville in North Carolina, and one of the first Methodist congregations organized west of the Blue Ridge in North Carolina, we, the Commission on Archives and History, present Louisa Chapel and the Shook Smathers House for consideration as a United Methodist Historic Site. Thank you.